Hey everyone, welcome to the Undroppables Week 5 rapid reaction for the NFL. It is just Brian this week, just me. Dan has the week off. He says he's moving and there's something wrong with his internet. But I miss you, Dan. We haven't been able to do a rapid reaction together in now 2 weeks. But let's dive. Before we dive into it, I just want to touch on I'm seeing now they're talking about John Gruden out as the Raiders head coach. So if you don't know that, I'm sure that's going to be unpacked this whole entire week. But now let's just get into the rapid reaction for week 5. First off, I have Brandin Cooks, which it's crazy. I'm starting with Brandin Cooks talking that he had a disappointing 17% target share this week. It is disappointing because he only had 3 receptions for 23 yards, which is by far his worst statistical output for the entire season. It's his lowest target share of the year. And it's also his first time below 30% target share with Mills at quarterback. But I'm not worrying at all. Mike Clay pointed out on Twitter that a large reason for Cook's bad game was he was shadowed by J.C. Jackson, who I was messaging with Dan, who is a Patriots fan, and said that he described J.C. Jackson simply as a stud and arguably the best player on the team. So I am not worried about Brandin Cooks. In fact, I think this is a tiny buy window for Brandin Cooks. He may not be a wide receiver 1, but someone with a 30% target share, that's what you want. And so I think this is the 1 week you might have to buy him. And so especially in PPR, getting all those receptions, all those targets, he's someone that you want, a solid producer on your team. Next, I'm going to the Seattle wide receivers. So Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So obviously the reason I'm talking about them is the injury to Russell Wilson. This puts Geno Smith in play for quite some time. So we did get a tiny sample with Lockett and Metcalf playing with Geno Smith there in the game. And honestly, Geno Smith looked pretty good for someone just being thrown into the game. Both Lockett and Metcalf saw 4 targets from Geno Smith, so I'm not sure if he was showing any favoritism towards one receiver or the other. He did give Metcalf that touchdown. But if anything, I think this might be a slight up for Metcalf because I don't think it's decreased too much for anyone. I think Metcalf might get just a few more looks because Wilson, he had that connection that with Tyler Lockett. He always had those huge, giant throws, those moon balls, some people call them, to Tyler Lockett. So I think a few of those might just go to Metcalf, shorter to Metcalf. So it is slightly down on Lockett. But if anyone is selling either Lockett or Metcalf because of the Wilson injury, I definitely think this is an opportunity for you to jump in there and buy those players. Because I really don't see they're both. Metcalf is one of the most talented and most athletically gifted players in the NFL. And then Lockett is just incredibly talented. So I think you should buy them if anyone is selling. Next, Tommy's going to be happy that I'm talking about the Raiders positively because I am a Broncos fan, so him and I go back and forth. But Josh Jacobs, he has seen 5 targets in consecutive games for the first time in his career, also according to Mike Clay from ESPN. And while you might think that, well, the Raiders have been down big in both those games for a little bit, last week, 3 out of 5 of those targets came from a neutral game script. And overall, 5 out of 10 of those targets have come from when the Raiders have been within 7 points. So he's not just getting targets when they're on passing downs and like trying to make up the game. He's getting neutral game script targets, which is a big deal. I think it gives Jacob a very nice floor. I don't think it pushes him into the running back 1 discussion, but should really be a high-end RB2, which is higher than I really expected. The one thing I will say about the Raiders, it doesn't make sense they gave Kenyon Drake all the money they did, considering he's getting so few touches. Like Kenyon Drake is just worthless now. He's droppable if you have him, I'm pretty sure. But he's not getting any touches. Jacobs is soaking up a lot of the touches in that backfield. Next, another area that is happening that we're talking about because of injury, the Chicago Bears running backs, Damian Williams and Khalil Herbert. Herbert actually outsnapped Williams 34-31. People pointed out on Twitter that a lot of Herbert's touches actually came when the Bears were trailing and the game was getting away from them. But still, it's impressive that Williams had more snaps, or that Herbert had more snaps, excuse me. But Williams did have the targets. He had 3 targets to Herbert's 0. And also Williams had 3 of the 4 carries inside the 10-yard line, so the most valuable carries for them. So Williams seems to be the one that have in his backfield. I'm not sure if there's really one you want to have, considering that offense is still kind of struggling with Justin Fields starting. But I would love Williams if Herbert wasn't there to limit his upside. But he seems like a low-end RB2 going forward. But he'll at least have the floor of a few targets and the goal line touches until David Montgomery gets back. Next is someone that I just didn't have on my radar at all this season, and it's one of my massive mistakes, is AJ Green. So this week was one of his big duds, and he only had a 6% target share after having at least 17% target share every week this season. And weirdly enough, he's been incredibly consistent. He's had 6 targets every week. And this week he only had 2. So I don't think that's a big deal. I think this is also just an off week. I can't blame it on the coverage he had, like I did for Brandin Cooks. But he did outsnap Kirk and Rondale Moore. AJ Green had 80% target share, or had an 80% snap share, whereas Kirk only had 52% and Rondale Moore had 48%. It does seem like they're making a few more manufacturing touches for Rondale Moore, but that doesn't worry me. AJ Green still seems to be consistent the rest of the season besides this last week. Like I said, I don't think this is going to continue. This is a fantastic offense. What Kyler Murray is doing, that guy he's making that, like, his extraordinary stat lines just expected now. So it's worth trying to see. I think AJ Green, kind of like Brandin Cooks, is also someone that if someone's scared by the 6% target share he had, only 2 targets, I think it's worth sending out just a speculative offer to see if you can get him, because he's someone that if you had him in your flex, he's someone that's going to give you consistent production every week, I believe, going forward. Next, I'm going to love this topic, the Jacksonville wide receiver situation. So I'm not sure. When I saw this stat, I had to look it up because I didn't believe it. Jamal Agnew led them with 8 targets this weekend. Then Dan Arnold, new to the team, Dan Arnold, had 6 targets. Tavon Austin had 5, and Marvin Jones had 5. Then Laviska Shenault had 3 targets. Agnew has his 3rd in many targets on Sunday as he's had in his career. Just let that sink in. He's like, this guy has just bounced around rosters, and now for some reason he's the centerpiece of a wide receiving core there in Jacksonville. This makes no sense. I don't understand anything Urban Meyer's doing, football wise, off the field wise, but his football moves and personnel moves have all just been atrocious. I don't know how he lasts the season, because this team is hard to watch. I will say, though, Dan Arnold is actually a decent tight end streamer. He's taking over for O'Shaughnessy, who actually was shaping up to be a decent tight end streamer before his injury. So one of the only pieces I think I want to have on the Jacksonville offense is Dan Arnold. But that's about it. The rest of this team, I just don't understand Laviska Shenault only getting 3 targets when there was all this talk about Kadarius Toney, like Urban wanting him and always wanting someone for that Percy Harvin role. I really thought Laviska Shenault would fill in that. So it doesn't make any sense, and it's not worth trying to figure out which wide receiver is going off each week in Jacksonville. And then finally, I'm going to talk about Myles Gaskins, and I have no idea what happened with him this weekend. He had 10 targets and over a 25% target share, which they were playing the Buccaneers, and they were down big. Tom Brady just went off again. Apparently, Tom Brady doesn't know how to regress to the mean, and instead just keeps on having outliers, either throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns or 1 or 0. But the Buccaneers are a pass funnel defense. So I really expected some of the wide receivers, especially Waddle, to have a big day. But no, it was Myles Gaskin. But I think this is a fluke. I think Devontae Parker was a fairly late scratch. And so being down most of the game, I think that just led to Gaskin getting a lot of these targets. I'm not sure it's someone you really want to trust on your team going forward. So that's it for week 5. Check back at the same time next week for week 6. Hopefully Dan and I are able to be together. But yeah, this has been great. Dan, Patriots suck, go Broncos, and have a great night, y'all.